Hi, everybody. I think we're going to get started. Thank you all so much for being here today. My name is Kim Matus. I'm Sales Director and Digital Marketing Strategist at RealMagnet. We are a leading email and social messaging provider. I'm being joined today by Andy Swindler. He's the President at Aztec, and Matt Humphrey, the Chief Marketing Officer at BLR. So I'm going to kick things off this morning talking about email and social and the integration of those two tools. And then Andy's going to talk about SEO and analytics, and Matt's going to close on website optimization and testing tools. We are hoping to leave a solid 15 minutes at the end for an open Q&A, but by all means, as we're going throughout, if you have a question, just shout it out, because a lot of times the best part of these sessions is the input and the questions that are coming from the audience. So my most recent job before I joined RealMagnet this August was at Leadership IQ, and half of our business was generated selling paid webinars to HR and corporate training execs, teaching them how to be better leaders. And the primary way we sold these webinars was through email. So by far and large, email was the heavy hitter amongst all the marketing channels. It was steady, it was consistent, and it allowed for a very healthy online business. Now, tracking the success of our efforts from email was also pretty easy for me at Leadership IQ because I had the luxury of this great email performance report, which is an Excel-based tool that I walked away with from my many years at Makota Group. And this tool basically tracked all in one place all of the engagement metrics that you would expect to see. But most importantly, the best thing about it was that it tracked revenue. So I knew for every single email I sent exactly how much revenue was being generated. And then I could allocate my email slots according to the winners. But even this tool required somebody on a weekly basis to manually pull all of the engagement metrics out of our ESP, and at Leadership IQ we were using eye contact at the time, and go into Google Analytics to pull the conversion data and the revenue data and then drop that into Excel. Now, this was all great, but I was just as passionate about tracking the social efforts that I was brought on to launch for Leadership IQ. But in order to get that same discipline where I could track for every single social post I sent the revenue that it generated, I found myself sort of stuck because I could use Hootsuite to get the social engagement metrics, the clicks, the retweets, and that sort of stuff. But if I wanted to see exactly which tweet generated a sale for an upcoming webinar, I had to use Google's URL builder to create unique custom codes for every single link, for every single post. It just wasn't possible. You know, I said for a small operation with limited resources, this isn't going to happen. I'm just going to settle for engagement metrics, but I'm not going to try to track revenue from social. So as my days went on there as a marketer, I said, how can I maximize my time where I can acknowledge that email is the center of my world, but I need to find a way to incorporate and integrate all of these other channels that I knew I needed to be taking better advantage of. So in comes my trusty SIPA colleagues and RealMagnet to help me with this social integration goal, as well as other important email goals like improving the questionable deliverability that I was getting with eye contact. So the first thing I needed RealMagnet to do was provide a solid deliverability testing tool. So this is a simple test that you can run before you send your email. Make sure it checks out. So it's going to check for broken images and broken links. It's going to run your email through 3 external spam filters. And it's also going to tell you exactly how your email is going to render across desktop, mobile, and web-based email clients, which is super important in today's increasingly mobile world. The next thing I needed to know is what percentage of my opens are happening on a mobile device. So make sure your ESP is telling you this, because at eye contact, I had absolutely no clue. And I think the averages that I'm hearing quoted out there are sort of north of 50% of opens are happening on, of email opens are happening on a mobile device. And the other thing is, if your people are opening your email on a mobile and you actually have gotten them to click, are they getting driven to web pages that are not optimized for mobile, where all of those conversions are just going to drop off? So this is a stat that's really important for you guys to know. And then beyond that, also knowing which mobile device they're opening on is helpful, because then that helps you set, design priorities for your email templates. And then finally, for any of you who are B2B, being able to add custom domains to your deliverability tracking is key, and something you should look for with your ESP, because again, at Leadership IQ, 94% of our list was all corporate. So knowing how we were getting delivered to our key accounts was really important. Now, what about all that social stuff I mentioned? How can I begin to integrate social into my day-to-day email-driven world. So let's think about your customer for a second. We're going to call him Mitch. He's a great customer. You know where he lives or where he works. You know everything that he's purchased from you. And on the email side, it's easy enough to connect what he's doing with your email. You can see if he's consistently opening, clicking. Now imagine a world where in the same place you can see what he's doing with your brand on Facebook. You can see how influential he is on Twitter and whether he's retweeting your content. On LinkedIn, you can see if he's a member of any discussion groups. And with all this data in one place, you can begin to ask yourself if you're really taking, best advantage of everything that you know about your customer. And so by integrating email and social into one system, you can start to paint this full circle picture of Mitch and start to tap into his specific behaviors across all channels to figure out how to best market to him. And so what are the practical ways to do that? Look for ESPs who are working to seamlessly integrate the posting and tracking of social in with your email efforts. And so here are just a few examples. You guys are putting so much effort into creating that daily, weekly, monthly newsletter, right? Might as well try tweeting and Facebooking that same content out. So this allows you with one click to basically, from the email send page, to post social versions of your email content. So the system's going to automatically append a shortened URL to your web version. It's going to bring in the subject line, which you can totally edit. And the kind of fun fact is we had been pushing sort of our social tools on our clients for a while, and it wasn't until we released this feature that we saw the adoption go up by 10x. Because again, we're making it super easy. The other thing is, so here's a visual, sorry, of what social versions of your email content would look like. Now, let's say that your company has multiple Twitter accounts, multiple Facebook accounts. Look for tools that allow you to write the social post once and distribute out to multiple social groups simultaneously. Now, let's say you also understand that on Twitter, for example, a great way to maximize your presence is to post several times a day. So here, look for opportunities to be able to point right to that email content over and over again. And then, of course, having the ability to schedule that in advance is really important, too. Now, on the tracking side, it's great to be able to track your social conversions on an email message level in one place. So here you can see all of the metrics associated with your email, and on that same page, if you sent out any tweets or Facebook posts related to that email content, you can see how those performed all in one place. And then it's also really great to be able to compare conversions across channels. So, for example, Real Magnet did our first user group conference earlier this year, and we marketed it, of course, through our own system. And you can see that on an engagement level, we're getting an equal amount of clicks from Twitter and from email. But on the revenue side, you can see where email totally trumps social in terms of generating sales. And you're also going to want to find ways to identify your top social content based on interaction. So look for tools that have some sort of a scoring mechanism that's going to allow you to see your most interacted with content bubble up to the top so that it's going to help inform your future marketing. You can see, hey, this particular type of tweet is getting a lot of attention. Let's do more things like this. Also really key to be able to identify your top social posts based on conversions. So look for tools that let you do that. And by the way we're able to tie in conversions, I think I missed saying this, is by integrating Real Magnet with Google Analytics. Because otherwise you're having to go into those two systems separately. But with the integration, you can just enter the, through Google Goals, you enter the information once, and that's how it's all getting tracked in one place. And then finally, the holy grail of all of this is to ultimately be able to associate an email address with a Twitter handle or a Facebook page. So the ability to connect those two pieces of data and have it all track in the same place. So start by collecting social handles on your email subscription pages, and you can begin to really learn and understand more about your customer and serve them in ways that best fits their communication preferences. And that's it for me for now. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, Kim. So I'm going to focus a bit on Google tools, 3 different ones. And, I'm sure many of you are familiar with these in some way, shape, or form. Some have been around a while, but, things are shifting, and so I think it's still very relevant. And for them, they're free. There's so many tools out there. We were having this discussion, like, how do we even decide? Right? There's so many things to talk about. So I'm going to focus on Google. So Google Analytics. I'm sure many of you use it. It's wonderful. It's always changing. It's always becoming more robust, which actually means that in many ways it's becoming more complex. And so we spend a lot of time kind of helping people create custom dashboards and things like this. But as Kim mentioned, the really key thing about analytics and Google Analytics is conversion tracking, I would say, because it can work as a self-standing solution, but in addition to Real Magnet, lots of tools do integrate with Google Analytics directly. And it's a way of, again, just proving, hey, did somebody do this goal or complete this action? So that's really the critical thing about any of these tools. They're only as good as sort of the thought process and the strategy behind them. What is a conversion goal? Well, obvious one would be something transactional like e-commerce. Hey, they bought our product. Great, like Kim just demonstrated. That is really the ultimate goal, right? You want to sell things. But depending on kind of your lead funnel and sales cycle, there are lots of other conversions that might be useful to you. Did they fill out this form? Did they download this white paper? Did they click into this video? I mean, anything like that, you can set up as a goal within Google Analytics fairly simply and track that. And then this is just a high-level view of kind of some of the metrics you'll get when you look at look at your analytics and kind of a high level, how many people completed various goals, more in like a trend kind of setting. So speaking of trends, Google Trends, we like to think of this as market research in 15 seconds. It's not going to tell you everything, but it will tell you if you're on the right track, and it can save you time in that way. So here's one example around technology: Apple 5S versus I should say iPhone. Anyway, iPhone 5C versus Samsung Galaxy S4. And what is trending? When was it trending? How does that matter to me? So it's useful because you can actually put in multiple terms and kind of track the trends against each other all at once. And again, it's not going to tell you everything, but it's one way of sort of seeing, well, which way is the market going? What are people searching for? And again, the value, I think, of Google is these tools, not only are they free and quite powerful, especially for being free, but it's Google, so they have the biggest data set about what people are searching for, on the planet. So here's another example in the trends. We've got health administration versus medical administration versus hospital management, and if you had a publication, kind of in this space, you'd see that, it becomes quite obvious sort of which of those, which two are more in favor. Now, over this period of time, they're all, medical administration stable. The other two are in some decline. So again, you can kind of start to garner, well, maybe that's not exactly the right.
And are these trends based on keyword searches? Because it says headlines there, or is it news headlines that they plug out keywords?
These, there are a few different settings for it, but this one, you're right, is based on news headlines and sort of, what people are putting out there. And then actually, these letters kind of denote significant web saturation for certain keywords related to press releases or events, and that's all automated. So Google will also give you kind of an indication of what were some key points in time when this became more or less relevant. So again, you can certainly look at keywords and kind of more of a percentage basis. What's trending? Is it up? Is it down? What's on top? This kind of starts getting into keyword strategy. Are you just trying to focus on sort of what's happening this week? Are you focusing on what's do I want to look at the last 2 years to try to figure out what's going to happen in the next year? That's really what the power of a trend line. So this one's interesting too. I think if you're in a space around kind of an educational space, GRE versus LSAT versus GMAT. In this, we already know just based on other information that fewer people since the economic downturn are going into law. So, we already know that, but this reinforces that. This tells us, hey, fewer people are looking. There's some kind of decline in the LSAT searches since 2008. So Google Webmaster Tools, whomever is in charge of your website should, I hope, be using this. It's a wonderful thing. You basically connect Google Webmaster. Again, it's a free tool, free account. You can connect it to all your Google accounts. You essentially connect that to your website, and the more you can spoon feed Google, the better off you're going to be. So it tells Google, lots of wonderful information. Hey, here's my sitemap. Here's my website. Here's what we're all about. Here's the biggest thing that's changed in the last 6 months. Google announced that they're no longer going to provide, in Google Analytics, they're no longer going to tell you what keywords people typed in to get to your site. They say that's for privacy reasons. I think that's because they want to sell you more ads. But this is actually, Google Webmaster Tools has become even more important because this will remain the only Google tool until they change something else, where you can get some information about the keywords that people typed in to lead to your site, which it's been in decline for a while, just the amount of information you get, and they've kind of tucked a lot of it away and whatnot, but they did officially, say, hey, we're gonna cut that off. So for now anyway, Webmaster Tools, there's a lot of nice things about it, but I would say that's really the highlight, because as much as, a specific focus on specific keywords is changing, it's still a great way to find out, hey, is your marketing working? Are you targeting your content correctly? How are people getting to your site?
And is this the extent to the information that it gives you right here, what we're looking at, in terms of the keyword data?
Yeah.
Significance?
So it's still pretty high level, but it's better than nothing.
Right, for sure.
Which I would argue is one of the reasons paid search is still, it's so useful now, because it's one of the places where you can actually see which of your paid search terms are driving clicks and conversions. And it's getting hidden in a lot of other places. And of course, Google wants me to be saying that to you, so you all go buy paid search ad. But I think that's really true.
Yeah, so you can actually dig in a little bit more and get, this is a lot closer to what you get in Google Analytics. But again, it's impossible to predict how long we'll even have this. I think for that reason, Google is kind of pulling back on a lot of this information and say, hey, if you want to work with keywords, you should just buy ads. Right? So that's it for me. Over to Matt.
So I'm going to walk through 2 tools that we use at BLR. And the first one is called ClickTail. And this is, it's another type of analytics. I'd say it's more focused on user experience rather than sort of the macro trends that you're getting from Google Analytics. So it's a good partnership between the two. And I'd say generally this is something we use when we're focusing in on a page or a set of pages that we want to optimize. Does anyone work with ClickTail? Anyone know it? Okay, so some of the cool things it does, sorry, I'm losing my mic. Visitor recordings, you can actually go to a page and just hit play, and it will scroll through every user visit that hit that page at sort of an accelerated rate, and you watch their cursor, and you see where they, you can see them dragging the cursor over text, reading an article, and then sort of zigzagging around and clicking. So that's, again, you're not going to want to do that on your entire site at a macro level, but when you really care about a page and you want to see how users are interacting with it, it's great. One of the things I'm going to be showing in more depth is the mouse move heat maps. These are not heat maps in the sense of watching where eyeballs go. These are tracking, obviously they can't do that, they're just tracking your site. They're tracking the mouse, where the mouse moves. Then you can get really specific about click heat maps, different conversion funnels, etc. So this was one of the times we used it. This is the mouse heat map. This is the home page of our compensation portal, and this was the control version of the page. So this is what we started with. And you can see this top section, this is a sort of very content-rich site. This top section where the big red circles are is a navigation device, sort of ways to sift through to the types of content you want. And then over here you can see, the classic, no one goes below the fold, right? We put in a bunch of stuff, no one goes pretty much below this top section. And so we were looking at this, and we were looking at specific parts of the site. One of our goals was just to drive engagement, to lower our bounce rate, basically to get people deeper into the site from this page. So let's right here. So what we did is we created these app icons for certain tools that are in the site, and sort of presented it in a more graphical way, trying to just update the look of the site, make it a little bit more user-friendly. And we saw here that it worked. It really pulled people's clicks down. They were using this section of icons. They obviously liked the visual navigation. Even though the old school, what I would call our old school text-based navigation at the top was still getting a majority of it, I think even though the fact that this visual navigation was lower on the page and still getting clicks really showed that people were adopting it. The other thing we saw here was that this salary center right here was really, really getting a lot of the traffic and a lot of the things. And so we know intuitively that that's one of the main reasons people come to this site, right? So we created a third iteration, and we cleaned that up. We put the salary search box right at the top. We should have done that 5 years ago. But there we did. Takes us a while. We put that up there. And we sort of cleaned up some of the design. We updated our apps to look a little bit more iOS 7, all that good stuff. And this is what we got. So people definitely use that search, search functionality that we added. It pushed the apps down the page, and now people aren't going there anymore. So it's sort of, one step forward, half a step back, in that we just, we keep iterating. Oops. And the tool, you can probably get this information out of Google Analytics if you're really using it well and you've got an analyst who can spend the time doing it. But I think, this immediately shows you, and your sort of even content people, what's happening, what are people doing on the site, what are they paying attention to. So that's how we've used this tool. They do have a freemium model, so you can set it up on your site and record up to 5,000 page views per month for free. So if you have a particular landing page or a set of landing pages that you want to try out, we did that for several months before we ever decided to pay. We splurged and got the silver plan, and we pay under $2,500 a year. Oops.
Can I ask a quick question? Can you put a background slide? It's notable to me, the free trial membership box. It looks like they avoid that like the plague.
Looks like they avoided your video too on the previous one.
True. So these are one of the issues. True. There's lots going on here. Some of these elements, like that free trial membership, is on every outside the paywall page. So it's sort of, yeah. So that's another element, frankly, that we've tested, right? And we've got another set of tests that actually.
I wasn't trying to pick on you. Classically, those elements are really, really low traffic. That was the point I was.
Yeah.
And
No.
they ignored it before too. If you go to the previous version,
They're ignoring it in droves.
Yeah. So it's like, might as well try to put an ad
This
there.
also shows that this was a sort of earlier version of the page, and we had different types of conversion on the right. And using the next tool I'm going to show you, we ran tests and showed that this single unified conversion element on every outside the paywall page was the winner of that test. So again, it simplifies the page. It makes it garish, you might say, but you know what we're trying to get you to do, right?
Yeah.
So that's that. And then Optimizely is the next tool that I was going to go through. And does anybody work with Optimizely? Do people use it? Great, got one in the back. All right. I think you'll all use it before the end of the day, is my goal. This is, I don't know if people used, was the Google tool. There's a Google, sorry, now it's called Experiments, exactly. This is an improved version of the multivariate and A/B testing tool that Google had for free, which they've sort of shifted their focus on that. And I included this because this is the core section of their homepage. And why I say I think all of you will use it today is because you can go in there. It's amazing how the software works. You can go in there on their homepage, type in your URL, click test it out, and start setting up moving elements around with drag and drop on your web page immediately. And then when you start to go set up your experiment and actually make it live, that's when they ask you to start signing up. So, I mean, the tool is really amazing in its usability. I think that was the reaction of our group here. It certainly was our reaction at BLR. So this is, we wanted to do a live demo because it is so amazing to just see how easy it is to change things. But we weren't sure what our connectivity was going to be. So this just shows, now we're in the tool. This is another, this again, same homepage. And this is just showing you some of the menus that you can do. What we've done is go to one of their tools. We've started to set up an experiment. We're creating variation 1. You just drag and drop, box in this section of the site. This is what you want to test. And then here are some of the menu options you can do. Move and resize, rearrange, remove, edit. Here's the next menu, which basically shows you can literally, you've highlighted this box. You can now drag it to the top of the page and say, start my experiment with that at the top of the page. I don't know how they do it. It's magic. It's beautiful. And I'll say it's almost scary. I mean, we've had our marketers, obviously the great thing about this is for us, we have a bottleneck in web dev, right? You want to run a ton of tests. This is why they call themselves, I believe, A/B testing you'll actually use. You have to create a spec. You have to send it to web dev. It sits in the queue. They go through it. You have to test, and then a month later you run a test, right? Here you can do it, on the fly almost. And our marketers, we've started to say, we really want to change this one page. And the woman who uses the tool the most says, oh, well, we don't need to send that to web dev. I'll just set it up in Optimizely as a variation, send 100% of the traffic to that variation, and we can make the page look however we want. We don't need web dev anymore. And it gets a little dicey. But it does show that you can, you can determine how much traffic you want to go to the test, how much traffic you want to go to the splits, the different variations. So it really helps with resources as far as making things happen with web dev. This is just a sample of the sort of results page for one of our experiments. A couple of things to note here. Obviously, it shows you your conversion rate over time, which I've always thought is pretty cool because it does shift. You think it is what it is, but it's not. The other thing is you've got options for different types of conversions. So for us, if you see up here at the top, Enviro step 2.5, 2.5, Enviro step 3, those are how far the person got through the sign-up process. And so a step 2.5 shows that they filled out our first contact information form. Step 3 means they took the next step and it gave us a credit card number and activated their trial. And so you can see how the performance plays out on different types of conversions. And if you have different types of conversions on the page, say a free trial or like this versus an email sign up, you can track all of that and watch the different conversions. So, you might want to say, I want to test this page, whether it's a free trial conversion or we just give them, all we're asking for is an email address for an email sign up. And then you could set up different conversion types and see how they play out. So that's Optimizely, I think, in a nutshell. This is their pricing. We have the gold option. It's the first option where you can have multivariate testing. The two big sort of factors, I think, for everyone is multivariate doesn't kick in until you get to gold. If you don't care about that, if you just A/B is good, which for most of us it should be, you don't have to pay that much. And then it's the number of monthly visitors that you have on your site. So again, pretty reasonable place to start. And I'd say that, tested on the fly thing is just, very impressive. So I'd recommend that. And that's me. So I think that's it for our canned presentation. Do people have questions about the tools that we've shown or how they might work together? Yes. Yeah, some of these that we were showing you there, that step 3 trial, the person has to put in a credit card number and process the credit card to convert. So one of the trends that we talked about as we were preparing was how I think Kim's presentation really summarized it. Was that we have lots of these tools, and we sort of went through this list. We could do 1,000 tools that we could talk about, and that's sort of our problem too as marketers and as publishers, is that you've got 25 tools that your marketing team or you as the marketer are trying to use, and all of the going back and forth is just consuming, and it stops you from getting things done. So I think that's one of the things that we've watched in trends as far as the way RealMagnet is bringing social and email together. We've been working on a marketing automation implementation. I know some people are on other marketing automation platforms like Pardot, and they're sort of the same kind of a deal. They sort of incorporate different parts of all of these different tools. I think that's one of the things we observe. So when you look at your tools, really try to see if you can get them together onto one platform where you've got centralized reporting as much as possible. It's just, we're buried in reports that we always try to reconcile, and it takes, 3 people's time to just figure that out. So when you can, I'd recommend simplify. Other questions? Right?
When you're doing the moving the parts of the site from, say, page 1, did I get that right? You just simply highlight that area, click, move it up there.
You got that, and start test, and there you go. So, I'm in marketing. I'm probably making it a little bit better than it is, but it's pretty close. It's pretty close. Did you? No? Yep.
Kim. So basically, the way that we're able to even begin to associate somebody's Twitter handle with an email is actually on your email subscription page. So let's say, for example, 2 ways. Let's go with the opt-out version. Somebody's opting out of your email. They hit unsubscribe at the bottom of that email. You should be driving them to a preference page where they can say, I'm sorry, we're sending too many emails. Tell us what you want to hear from us, how you want to hear from us, what kind of content. And on that page is where you are collecting that social handle. So sort of the email kind of comes first, and then the social pieces. At least that's how we're starting to see publishers and associations go down this path. So for example, you have somebody's personal email and you really want their corporate email. I've seen back at Makota, we used to recommend, on your sign up pages, sort of say work address. There's things you can do in the collection process to ask for that data. And you can always try to run a campaign like, hey, we noticed we've got your personal address. We'd love to get it to your, sort of things like that you can kind of, campaigns you can test, see what you can do.
You can also, it can be somewhat of a manual or laborious process, but if you have an email list, there are ways to figure out their Twitter handle without even getting them to volunteer that as well. So.
Yep. Once you have sort of a mass upload going through that, then you can sort of mass upload it to the system.
Wayne, does Pardot incorporate Twitter handles? Do you know? Okay, I think it's probably so. We're working on this marketing automation sort of implementation, and we're using Eloqua. And it's a database. You can set up any fields you want. And we've just recently had this discussion of like, well, shouldn't we put in Twitter handle? It's like, I think flashback to, I don't know, 15 years ago, where it's like, who would ever want their customer's email address? Like, why would you, build that field into your database? And so now we're like, who would ever want our customers' Twitter handles? Yeah, we don't want to build that in, so.
And the marketing automation capabilities are amazing. Picture, somebody subscribes to your premium product. You're able to send that, and you have their Twitter handle. You can send them a
Right,
response
direct
on Twitter
messages.
right there saying,
Yep.
hey, thanks so much for subscribing. And it looks like it's personal, but it's actually automated.
Right.
I mean, the opportunities there are going to be huge.
Right.
Absolutely huge.
Wayne, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask, there's so many fronts, optimizing landing pages, websites, your email, your e-newsletters, your dedicated emails. Where are you guys finding the best traction and the best return on investment? If you were to focus on just 2 or 3 things,
Right.
Where would you direct people?
I think email is still such a huge driver of revenue that I think we underinvest there in terms of testing. And that, of course, if you're talking email, you're really talking landing pages too, and offers and all that stuff. I'd say that would be at the top of my list still for that reason. I don't know if these guys have other answers.
Yeah, I like that answer.
Well, yeah, I think email is still, the inbox is sacred, so you have to respect it, but it is still the most direct way to get to people.
Right. I mean, we do other, when we're generally running optimization tests, like on Optimizely, it's usually around paid search because it's a good way to test. We know how much traffic's going to hit that page. We know where the traffic is coming from. It's more controlled, and then we can roll that learning out to sort of every landing page on the site for organic, et cetera.
Sounds to me as if the next step is going to be something like Kim's chart that tracks everything about an email, and that is, you have a fulfillment system that isn't going to add Twitter buttons to it. It's not going to add half these things that you want to track. Then you've got all these other front-end things where you're trying to collect this information, and somewhere along the way, you're going to have to find some way to get all this information into one place where you can track, okay, this was actually a sale, and over here we know this was the Twitter handle, and this was their LinkedIn, and everything else. So, does any of you have any ideas about what that middle piece?
For us, that's the goal of Eloqua. That, in a nutshell, what you just described is the reason we've been working on this for a year. There's a sponsor, by the way, I noticed that they're a sponsor of the event who we recently heard from, called OneCount. And they are, I think they're former CMP people, or Miller Freeman, I'm not sure which. And they built this sort of, they call it OneCount because their whole idea is one database, and everything is built into tables off of that. And so that's their goal as well. So they're different services, and I think if you're in any kind of controlled circ publication or advertising model, they really cater to that model, where they show advertiser. They describe it as, not only are you watching your users and where they're visiting, but you can show have an advertiser portal where they can log in and see the demographics of the people who've hit their page, on your site and all that kind of stuff. So it's the same idea, trying to get all the information into one database, or at least one place where you can view it. And that's, because that is definitely our biggest challenge in battle, is that we've got, different data in different places. Yeah?
Question I have is, do you guys still use any kind of direct mail? And what is the best way to incorporate that data back into your systems? Do you use phones, anything like that to try and track that data, because we still use direct mail in some capacity. So how would you guys handle that?
Yeah, so we do direct mail. We would send them to a landing page. It's not personalized. We don't go as far as personalizing to the sort of person level, but we do it for the campaign. So it would, the tracking would be embedded, and we know that there. And then to Greg's point about all of the sort of, the transaction data will go into our fulfillment database, and then that gets routed up into our, marketing database, which we can then use to say, okay, well, they're a buyer, and they've been on our site this much, and send them over to sales. for.
Kind of get them into the system.
Yeah,
just to route
exactly.
them that way. And then you can use the other to do the heat map and see where they are when they are.
Right, right. So, sorry, did you guys have other answers to that?
This is actually for the panel. Have you ever used like a redirecting of a display ad after somebody, so say somebody comes, they take a trial, or they come to the site, they don't take a trial, but they got there, or they got your landing page. And then you follow them around and display ads for a while.
Yeah, retargeting is what we would call that, yeah. We work with AdRoll is the vendor, and they can do retargeting on Facebook. So when you go to Zappos and you look at shoes or whatever, and then you go to Facebook and there's your shoes looking at you from the ad, that's, I think generally that's on AdRoll, but there are other ad networks that do that. We haven't had a lot of success. AdRoll, AdRoll. And and it's fun. You'll go there to their site, and then they'll retarget you, saying we're retargeting you. And so everywhere you go, there's like the little guy pointing at you, saying, we know who you are. Don't you want to do that to your people? So we haven't had a lot of success with it. We've tried to think of where it would be most useful, and we've thought long purchase cycles, like live events. So once someone comes to your site and then they disappear for a while and they're checking on their budget and they've sort of forgotten about the fact that this event is still out there, we want that to follow them all around. We haven't really been able to track back a lot of revenue to it, but it makes intuitive sense.
We did a test on retargeting a little while ago. A lot of retargeting is kind of leap of faith. People come to your site, and they leave and they go elsewhere, and they see these ads, which they never click on because nobody clicks on ads, and then they come back to your site and they purchase, okay? Some number of those people were going to do that anyway, right?
Yeah.
But some other number of people have been influenced by the ad. So we thought, well, how do we figure out which conversions are real? Okay, and then it's also a question of timeline and everything else. But what we did is we took our market, people who came to our website, we split that in half. Half of those people we gave them a public service announcement, and the other half of people we gave ads for our publication. And then we compared the behavior of those two groups. And what we found was, as you'd expect, a large number of people come back and buy from you anyway, even with the public service announcement. But there was a bump from the retargeting. And what you have to do is make sure that you incorporate, do that kind of a test, and then figure out what the actual bump is, and use that to discount what the retargeter says for their conversions.
Right.
Because they'll try to take credit for a lot of conversions that you would have gotten anyway.
Yeah. It's a little bit like...
Did you use Google retargeting, or did you use...
No. I'll remember the name in a minute. Fetchback. We use Fetchback.
Fetchback?
No, we use just the Google retargeting. We find, well, first of all, you don't pay if people aren't clicking on it that way.
Right.
But it's very, we think of it more as branding. It's just share
Right.
buying awareness. We look huge to the people who visit our site that we're the dominant
Right.
800-pound gorilla, and we pay very little. It isn't that effective. That many people click, but we think it's cheap. It's free branding.
Right.
Because it's everywhere they go.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the way Greg approaches that. That's,
I think there's still some fuzziness with it sometimes too. Like, you'll buy a product and then you'll keep seeing it over and over.
right, right,
I already bought it. To your point.
right.
It might, and it's just a thought, it might be useful for, one of the problems we have is get people to keep coming to the site, it's all online. And if you come to the site and you use it, you'll renew. If you don't come there, you're not going to renew. So, one thought is that, have a step
Just
that goes
remind-
to subscribers.
Reminding your subscribers.
Yeah,
That's great.
Messages.
Yeah, and you could do that based on what page they've clicked on to be included, to basically get cookied, so that when they go somewhere else, so you could even do it, it's a great idea. Thinking of like, if you have a subscription management page, or they're updating their address or something, if you can sort of get them there, so you know that they're a subscriber. I mean, you could just do it on any logged in page, I suppose, but we've got lots of trials and things like that, so it'd be nice.
Do you guys have any awesome tools that you love that
Yeah.
you want to share with the group? Something you can't live without?
I
Come on.
use Unbounce.
Unbounce?
I would like to
Another
optimize the,
So-
Unbounce, you have to build a page, in this case, it
standpoint.
On the list building side, there are a lot of tools for scraping and other ways to try to find the right people. What are you guys using and finding success with people?
I can't say we're using anything that I would tout, so.
Yeah. What I can say is that if you're going to do that sort of a thing, this is totally not answering your question, but I think it's important from a deliverability standpoint, right? So if you're going to scrape names and email to them to try to get them to do whatever, try to separate that from a deliverability standpoint, like, because you don't want to muddy your clean, healthy pool with that sort of stuff. That's another reason why Real Magnet was attracted to me at Leadership IQ, because we did a lot of that. And I knew I had to separate that out. And then obviously no ESP wants to hear that you're doing that, but at the same time, be open and just let us know so that way we can configure accordingly. But yeah, in terms of tools.
So you were doing that at Leadership RQ, though? We can't put you on the spot and get you. We caught that. So.
Yeah, I don't know a tool offhand, but there are certainly providers like Connotate comes to mind.
Connotate.
All sorts of data.
I can comment on that a little bit. We use Broadlook for.
That was the name. They were popped up at SIPA a few years ago, and it was
Yeah.
a big hot thing, right?
We used them for a couple of years, and very successfully actually. But you really have to have an operator that can run that software. And they recommended a consultant. We used a consultant. It was terrible. And then I had a 21-year-old college dropout writer. I mean, totally bright. I just said, give this a test. I know you can do this. So first week he got us 10,000 names that were great.
Wow.
And then we had a software engineer that did the other part, and that worked. There's trouble with war. I mean, wow. One site we harvested was isospammers.com. That wasn't so good.
The settlement didn't put you out of
just to
business,
throw that
obviously.
out, I mean, then you get a spam house trap, or you get a spam
Yeah.
house trap.
Yeah.
So I learned a bunch about those different things, much more than I wanted to know. And so we haven't used it in the last couple of years, but yeah, it was exciting and it was effective, but it was.
What's the name?
It's called Broadlook.
Broadlook?
Yeah, BROAE, Broadlook, LOOK. And they have some on their site. If you go there, they have some short video advertisements that are pretty effective.
I'm gonna
Cool.
call
Can I call it?
We're just a few minutes over. I want to say, not only is this an excellent panel, and I want to thank so much. Kim, you said you're going to allow 15 minutes at the end for questions. When you finished the presentation, it was 11:55. Scarily.
Nice.
Right on. That's how good these guys are.
Very
Very
professional.
Practice for you.
Yeah,
Thank you very
totally.
much. Thank you all for coming. Lunch is over where the breakfast was this morning, I believe, in minutes. So, thank you.
Just for me, and, because I'm actually trying to get towards the end of my side, because pretty much what I'm gonna do.
Oh, and there's no way
WEBMASTER is like